It's Ozarks Fox News at 9 starts now.
Real, new, now. This is Ozarks Fox News at 9.
And welcome to Ozarks Fox News at 9 on this Friday. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Adams.
And I'm Jennifer Abreu. We begin with some of the top headlines of the day. These stories are real, new, now. The list of allegations of misconduct keeps growing in Virginia. Now a second woman accusing Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of sexual assault. Fairfax denying the first allegation for now, and some calling for his resignation. Meanwhile, in Richmond, protests and calls for Governor Ralph Northam's resignation as well over a racist yearbook photo and comments over abortion.
Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is accusing the National Enquirer of extortion and blackmail. The world's richest man says the tabloid threatened to publish intimate photos unless Bezos stopped investigating an earlier article containing private exchanges with his mistress. The Enquirer says it stands by its earlier reporting.
The Supreme Court has blocked a Louisiana abortion access law from going into effect, a victory for opponents of the law. The state's Unsafe Abortion Protection Act requires a doctor have admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles of the facility where the abortion is performed. The ruling doesn't stop the Supremes from taking up the case later or possibly upholding the law.
Well, new at 9 tonight, there are about 175 driver's license offices in the state of Missouri, and many of them are actually struggling to keep their doors open.
And those offices rely on just a few things to generate revenue. And our Jesse Inman is here to explain why it just isn't enough for many to stay afloat. Jesse.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Driver's license offices are not operated by the state, and they don't get a dime in state funding. They're privately owned, and they rely on fees from the transactions that you pay to keep the lights on. But the problem is, those fees have stayed the same for the last 20 years.
License offices haven't had an increase in the fee that's set by the legislature since 1999.
Since that time, Missouri drivers have had it pretty good when it comes to many of the fees at the license office. One-year license renewals are $350, titling fees are just $250, and when a notarization is required, those are free. Ryan Williams with the Missouri Association of License Offices says those small fees just aren't enough to sustain some offices in today's world.
Going back to 1999, when that fee was put in place, rent has doubled in many cases. Minimum wage was nearly half of what it is now.
Since license offices get no state funding, those small fees they gather are stretched very thin.
100% of our income is derived from the fees. It's just rendered many, if not the majority of the offices, either at a break-even point, or there are many offices that are actually running in the red right now.
Williams uses the office in Sarcoxie, Missouri as an example.
They grossed $40,000 last year.
He says that makes it tough to pay employees, building rent, and other operational costs, but soon drivers may be relied on to keep those places in business. Senate Bill 114 is a piece of legislation that would bump those fees up to help them stay open.
The one-year renewal, it would go from $3.50 to $6. It would go to $12 for a 2-year. Titling fees are $2.50. That would also go to the $6. We have been for years not charging for notary services. We do have a $2 fee in there for notarization.
Williams believes these small increases would be enough to keep many offices sustained the next few years. Now, Williams says another thing that has hurt them is the state allowing for online renewals for tags. That takes away money from the local offices and gives it to the Missouri Department of Revenue. And he says those proposed increases would help offset some of the money lost there as well.
Our Jesse Inman, thank you. Also happening in the state, as of yesterday, Missouri had already received over $3 million in medical marijuana fees and forms. According to the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, a total of 418 forms have already been filed, 226 for dispensary facilities, 128 for cultivation facilities, and another 64 for medical marijuana infused manufacturing facilities. The fee to file an application to open a cultivation facility is $10,000. That fee is non-refundable. To open a dispensary, the application fee is $6,000. Amendment 2 calls for 192 dispensaries throughout the state of Missouri. More applications are expected to come in throughout 2019.
Happening now tonight at 9. With these cold temperatures tonight, the Salvation Army has opened their emergency cold shelter. Doors open tonight at 8 p.m. People without children can go to Harbor House on North Boonville. Those with children can go to the Salvation Army office on West Chestnut Expressway. A picture ID will be required to stay overnight.
A former highway patrol trooper and FBI employee was sentenced to probation last week for unlawfully using a weapon while intoxicated. 33-year-old Joseph Dane Flynn of Bella Vista, Arkansas, was given a suspended imposition of sentence, which means that could allow him to keep that conviction off his record. Flynn was arrested after firing his gun into the wall and floor of his home back in 2015. His blood alcohol content at the time was 3 times the legal limit.
Also happening today in St. Charles County, Missouri, crews are looking for the source of a crude oil leak. Officials with the Keystone Pipeline and the Platte Pipeline don't know which company is responsible for the 1,800-gallon leak. Crews first noticed the spill on Wednesday. Officials are testing the water and are asking neighbors to keep an eye out for signs of oil. A spokesperson for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources says both companies are cooperating with the investigation.
On political coverage now, if you choose to drive an electric car, you currently get a financial break when you purchase that vehicle. This is the government's way of encouraging people to drive emissions-free vehicles. But one U.S. representative from here in Missouri doesn't see it that way. Our Colin Lingo spoke with Representative Jason Smith today.
While he isn't sure where it came from, Representative Jason Smith of Missouri is certain getting rid of the current tax break people get when they buy electric cars will produce the revenue he says this country needs. Revenue that won't just go toward roads and bridges, but also possibly walls.
80% of the people that utilize this tax subsidy make more than $100,000 a year. That's a problem. In fact, just the last 3 years alone, we have seen that this tax subsidy has cost roughly $5 billion. That's enough to build the wall. This is an effort to make sure that we are good stewards of the American taxpayer dollars. But absolutely, if they want to use this money to help build and secure our border, absolutely, we're good for it. The federal tax code should not incentivize behavior of human beings. It should definitely allow the funding mechanisms to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure and all Americans have the proper national security.
Colin Lingo, Ozarks First.
And Governor Mike Parson and Speaker of the House Elijah Haahr spoke today at SMC Packaging in Springfield to address workforce needs. They discussed the Fast Track program that would provide financial help to low-income adult students enrolled in degrees that fill high-need skilled careers. Some examples include advanced manufacturing, computer science, and healthcare. The governor says this proposal is long overdue.
First time that I've seen in my career in a long time that you've seen the education community, the elected officials, and the private sector working together come up with a real solution. And I think when we do this fast track and other legislation has to do with workforce, I think you're going to see a meaningful result of people working together to do the right thing for people in Missouri.
Governor Parson says this legislation is a top priority and will be voted on in the near future. And the governor stopped by the Ozarks Fox studio this afternoon to sit down with David Oliver for an extended interview about politics in Missouri. That will air on Ozarks Tonight on Monday next week. We'll also upload the interview on OzarksFirst.com.
We have a developing story for you now. It's been over a month since Vatterott College closed its doors to students here in Springfield. But we're learning many of them have decided to enroll at OTC for less money and an accredited degree.
For example, with dental assisting, the 180-day follow-up survey, 100% were placed within jobs in the community. With our diesel and automotive programs, the job placement rate is well above 90%. Most of these students are getting connections in their internships, and they're able to just be hired on right after that.
OTC says 43 students have so far reached out to the school to join its automotive and dental programs. Some of those students have already been enrolled and placed in advanced classes by instructors. OTC's diesel program recently expanded, allowing the school to take on more students who will now have a good chance of landing a job after graduation.
Moving on to weather now, Beth. We've had severe weather. We've had cold. What is the weekend looking like?
Well, it's still looking cold. Look at this. Feel like temperatures right now at 8 degrees here in Springfield. Those will continue to drop through the overnight hours. And then we've got an icy mix coming in on Sunday and on Monday. We'll do that in just a few minutes.